Friends, I have been without personal assistance for the last 2 months. Previously, I was up to two personal assistants, one executive assistant, and a practice manager to help me with all the various things that I was doing. Now, they're not all full time. I would say that one personal assistant was a full time resource. So, maybe about two and a half full-time equivalent resources. And in the beginning, it was fantastic. So I had that arsenal of help from about January, February, because it was on my plan to actually get myself more help to take away some of the administrative things that I was still hanging on to. And, February, March, April, I was running so hard. I was so tired. And at first, I thought that it was a case of when you have more people who are working with you, there's more communication, more emails are coming back. And so you're actually needing to think through a lot more and respond more just because you've got more people to work with you. And this was particularly true of the our personal assistants that we had put into to resource me, not so much our practice manager and my executive assistant who worked with me for a very long time. These were two new resources, and they were amazing. They were brilliant. They were so fast, so engaged in what we were doing, and I just found that I was speeding up. I was just speeding up. And I put a pause on those two resources, not so much because they weren't working for me. In fact, I wouldn't have even thought that I was delegating out some wrong things and just speeding up because I had deleted and then more was coming in. But we put a pause to it because the business was going through some fluctuations, and I really wanted to have a look and see if we could stabilize some of the numbers that we were facing. And I wanted to be able to therefore also wholly focus back into our original business, Center for Effective Living, and have Center for Effective Serving kind of at a different pace. So went back into Effective Living to stabilize things, and so reduce some of that. But my word, so I was asking myself, because things have stabilized now. I've been able to provide whatever effective living needed and wholly released back into effective serving. And it was like, do I put back personal? And I actually got a bit of a startled response going, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I thought this is interesting. One would think it's a really great thing to be able to put back the assistance into the profile, but I was just responding with don't do it, 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 don't do it. And here's what I think happened. So I just finished recording a podcast with Dr. Chelsea Gill of Bond University, and she'd done a PhD on the effectiveness of retreats. And it was a framework that I'd never heard about. And what she was saying to me is, I forgot, did I write it down? I've forgotten what the framework is, but it had to do with our attention. And essentially, she was talking about how in our roles, and particularly in modern society, our attention is so grabbed, from the minute that you step out of your bed, even if you've held your phone, your attention has already been grabbed in 1,000 different ways, and things aren't coming at you in smaller bites, smaller chunks. And the thing is, when they're condensed, right, like when you're watching a TikTok video, unless you're watching little cats and funny things, but my feed is now largely on TikTok, these, what are they, like 7 seconds or something, like grabs of information. The smaller the chunk is, the less context, the less you're reading the detail, the more you actually have to figure out whether what you're hearing is real and true, and how do you actually implement it. So for example, I've been watching, it's just been coming up my feed, right? So I must be clearly attending to things about how to retire. So, first it started with relatively, kind of vanilla type advice, things that you already know. But I think the more I was attending to the retirement type TikTok videos, the more it was feeding me. And then it was getting more complicated. And then it was getting more into like, and then I was finding like I was just buying it. Whatever this, the TikTok videos were saying, I was like, oh yeah, let's go and do that. And it got to the point where it was starting to feed me Robert Kiyosaki videos. Now, this is the rich dad, poor dad guy of what, the 80s or something like that. And it was just back to back Robert Kiyosaki. And I was like lapping it all up. Oh yes, Robert Kiyosaki. And then I'm gonna hang on, wait a minute. I think there's a reason why I stopped reading his stuff. What was the reason? Okay. This is not the advice that I want to follow. And in these short chunks, I reckon you're actually using more attention because you're storing some stuff up that you've got to think about that you previously, like Robert Kiyosaki, I haven't thought about him since the 90s. Why am I thinking about him? I don't need to think about him. And so, Dr. Chelsea Gill was talking about how we have so much stuff, even just in our personal world, competing for our attention, that want more in our workspace. And this is completely what I want to share with you about my discovery in terms of having delegated things. I was delegating things that I thought were going to help me, but it just meant that the only things that were left on my plate were things that required a lot of concentration, would have a high level of risk for error because I was giving out things that didn't require them. Now, I don't do administration well. So delegating someone else to manage my diary is a good thing because I'm not good at that and I will tend to make mistakes and it annoys everybody. So that should be delegated because it's not my strength and it would take me an hour for what it would take someone else much less time. I'm also not very good at proofreading. That would be a very good thing to delegate because things have gone out that are completely wrong. It would take me, another hour to fix it. It's much better to give it to somebody else who has a strength in it. But I was delegating everything that was routine and administrative, even if I enjoyed it. Right. So I do enjoy making canvas, like handling my social media. I actually do enjoy it because there's some connection, some creativity, but I just delegated everything that was routine and administrative out. And then what I was left with was just more complex tasks. And here's the thing, right? Because now you have blank spaces in your day. What gets filled up is, well, I filled them up. This is nobody else's fault but mine, with more complicated things, more meetings, more networking, more Zoom calls, more business development activities. And it was exhausting. So friends, before you delegate and delete a bunch of stuff off your diary, make sure that they're the things that you really aren't good at and would really buy you back some time, not so you can put on more complicated things and more meetings, but so that it buys you back some time to ground yourself, to have some space, to just relax, reflect, and think, and to pace down, and to and make sure you do keep some simple things in your diary and in your working world, particularly if they're things that slow you down, that you actually really enjoy, that put a smile on your face, that you feel really satisfied that you could do it, that you could finish it, that you could name it as an achievement. Don't give those things away, right? So if you're delegating and you're finding that your life is speeding up and you're just having more headaches and you're wondering why I'm delegating so effectively, it may not be the delegation itself. It could be the what you're delegating, what you're deleting, and then what you're putting back on in that space. Cheers.